Ever stumbled on an idea that just flips your perspective?
Mm-hmm.
That's hyperbitcoinization for me.
Yeah.
Picture this. Bitcoin, not just another investment, but the global currency.
Wow.
Like a black hole, its pull becomes irresistible.
Interesting.
Now, you're probably thinking, sounds wild, but could it really happen?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's what we're diving into today with insights from a fascinating video by Till Musshoff. He talks about Bitcoin acting like a black hole.
Oh, I like that. Tell me more.
Once it hits a certain point, its pull is too strong. Even skeptics get pulled in.
I can see that.
Musshoff argues that Bitcoin's rising price is a huge e-motivator, like a built-in viral marketing campaign.
It's true. It's basic game theory, incentives. Historically, nobody wants to be stuck with a weak currency.
Right.
Like, remember when the euro replaced a bunch of currencies back in the day? Everyone was scrambling because holding on to those old currencies meant losing money.
Yeah, totally.
Only this time, it's tech driving the shift, not governments.
Exactly. So where do we fit into all of this? Musshoff lays out 4 steps to hyperbitcoinization. First up, number go up. Price increase drives the initial wave of people jumping in.
Right, the fear of missing out phenomenon. But it takes more than just FOMO for true hyperbitcoinization. Musshoff highlights other key elements needed for mass adoption.
Okay, so what are those other steps?
Second, education. People need to understand Bitcoin beyond just, oh, the price is going up.
Right.
It's about the tech behind it, the potential, the limitations. No more blind hype.
I see what you mean. It can't just be about chasing the number go up.
Exactly. Third is user experience. We need everyday people to find Bitcoin easy to use.
Makes sense.
Imagine trying to buy something as simple as a coffee, but it takes a tech degree to figure out Bitcoin. It's not going mainstream like that.
Right. Nobody wants to jump through hoops just to buy a cup of coffee. What's the last step?
Last but not least, a circular economy. More businesses need to accept Bitcoin.
That makes sense. Otherwise, what's the point? You buy with Bitcoin, but then you immediately need to convert it back to dollars to actually use it.
Exactly. It needs to be seamless, part of everyday transactions. Imagine paying your rent, your groceries, everything with Bitcoin.
So is this whole hyper-Bitcoinization thing like a pyramid scheme? The more people who join, the more valuable it gets.
Not quite. It's less about a hierarchy, more about a network effect.
I see. It's not about who's at the top, but how interconnected the whole thing is.
Precisely. And that's where the whole black hole idea really clicks. More people use Bitcoin, more businesses adopt it, the stronger that pull gets.
So to sum up, we've got the initial spark, driven by those price increases and that hype.
The number go up phase, but it can't stop there.
Right. You've got to educate people about why it matters, not just how it works. What's the technology? What are the benefits?
And make it easy to use.
And finally, you need that whole ecosystem where people actually use it.
It's not just hype. It's about real adoption.
You're saying all of that could actually lead to a hyper-Bitcoinized world.
It's a possibility, even if it sounds like science fiction.
So let's talk details.
Yeah.
What would this world actually look like? We're talking about Bitcoin being as normal as using a credit card is now, but what would that world actually look like? What happens when Bitcoin isn't just for the techie people?
Well, Musshoff throws out some pretty wild ideas. Like, he says nation states, like countries, they might actually shrink.
Shrink? How does that even work?
Think about it. Governments, they've got a lot of power now, right? They control the money.
Yeah.
They print more whenever they want, and that can mess with your savings, give them more control over the economy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But with Bitcoin, they lose that control. Can't just print more Bitcoin out of thin air. It's all controlled by code.
So hyper-Bitcoinization could mean governments lose power and individuals gain more? That's a big shift.
It is. He even uses Switzerland as an example. They stuck with the gold standard for a long time. Kind of similar to Bitcoin, limited supply. And they ended up one of the richest countries.
Interesting. So less government, more individual power. Got it. What else? What else changes?
Musshoff thinks it could even change how we see time. He talks about this thing, low time preference.
Okay.
Sounds complicated, but it basically means you value the future more than the present.
How does Bitcoin fit into that?
With Bitcoin, your money's likely to be worth more in the future. It's deflationary, limited supply, demand goes up, value goes up. So why spend today when your money's more powerful tomorrow? It encourages saving, thinking long term.
That's a big change from how we think about money now. We're all about spend it while you got it.
Exactly. Hyper-Bitcoinization, it could change our whole relationship with money, with time even.
But wouldn't that mean the economy just stops? If everyone's hoarding Bitcoin, who's spending?
It's a common worry, but Musshoff says people would still spend on what they need, what they value. Just because you know a new phone will be cheaper next year doesn't mean you won't buy one today if you need it, right?
True. Plus, imagine never hearing, oh, it's not that prices are up, it's inflation, ever again.
Right. Musshoff uses this great example. A winemaker, right. During inflation, they might be tempted to use cheaper ingredients. Cut corners.
Yeah, I could see that.
With Bitcoin, that temptation's gone. You can't just print more to fix bad decisions.
So it's like hyper-Bitcoinization forces more honesty in the economy. The value's more stable.
It's a possibility, but it also brings up tons of questions. How do we navigate this new world? What happens to banks, those big financial institutions? Do we need entirely new economic models, new ways to even measure value?
It's like stepping into the unknown. Not just a new currency, but a whole new way society works.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. A little scary, too.
So we've got the government angle, how we view money, the economy itself. But what about just living? How would things feel different for the average person? How do we buy our morning coffee?
That's where Musshoff's idea of Bitcoin becoming like the 8th base unit of the world, that's where it gets really interesting. Right, instead of meters and grams, we're talking about measuring value in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Like imagine your coffee, right? Instead of pricing it in dollars, always changing, it's a tiny fraction of a Bitcoin. And since Bitcoin's value is tied to its code, not some government's decision, that price could stay stable for ages, months, years even.
So no more of those shrinking coffee cups to hide the fact that prices are going up.
Exactly. It completely changes how we think about value. Think about gold for a second.
Yeah.
If we suddenly found a mountain of it, would it still be so precious?
I guess not.
Right. Bitcoin makes us rethink scarcity in the digital age.
It's not just how many Bitcoins something costs, but what that much Bitcoin can get you in this new world.
Right. It's like hitting reset on the entire global economy.
You might need a whole new way of thinking about economics in general.
Exactly. Salaries, loans, even something like crowdfunding a business, it'd all be different. Okay, so we've got stable prices, maybe more power for individuals, and this whole new way of understanding value. But what about the everyday stuff? Would I still use my credit card? Taxes? How would that even work?
That's where it gets a little fuzzy, you know. We're in hypothetical territory here. Musshoff doesn't have all the answers because, well, nobody does.
Right.
We're talking about a potential future.
So are we talking about a world without banks? No more credit card points.
Some people think those old systems, traditional finance, it all becomes obsolete, replaced with these new systems built on the blockchain.
Wow.
Others say maybe there's a transition period. Fiat currency and Bitcoin, they coexist for a while.
It's like the Wild West of money. Anything goes.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. We're seeing a new financial system being born right before our eyes. Who knows where it'll go?
Speaking of unknowns, Musshoff leaves us with this huge, kind of mind-blowing question.
What's that?
What happens to the price of everything else if Bitcoin becomes the main way we measure value?
It's a huge question. It's almost impossible to imagine.
It really is. Like, how do you even begin to think about that?
Right. It'd be like trying to figure out how much a grain of sand is worth if we found a beach that covered the entire universe.
Oh, wow. Okay, so if Bitcoin is the ultimate measuring stick, what's a house worth? A car? A loaf of bread?
Would we even use the same ideas about economics? Would we have to come up with totally new ones?
It's exciting and a little scary to think about.
Musshoff has really given us a lot to think about today. Shrinking countries, changing how we see time. It's clear hyperbitcoinization wouldn't be a small change.
Yeah.
It would be a seismic shift, changing everything, from how the world works down to how we buy that morning coffee.
It's a future with huge potential, for good and for bad. Shows how little we know about what's coming, especially with technology and money.
Absolutely. And that's where you come in, listener. What do you think this hyper-Bitcoinized world would look like? Would it be this amazing utopia where everyone's empowered and financially secure? Or would it create new problems, new kinds of inequality? It's a question worth thinking about. And as we've seen today, there are no easy answers.
That's for sure. But even asking these questions shows how much potential this technology has to shake things up.
It really does.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into hyper-Bitcoinization. It's a complicated topic, and it's changing all the time.
That's for sure. Never a dull moment.
But it's a conversation worth having. Keep learning, keep asking those big questions, and who knows? Maybe we'll see you in that hyper-Bitcoinized future.
See you there.